Hi Sumitra ji, I hope everything is good. So we're just waiting for Kimberly to join in. Good to hear from you Sumitra ji. Hi Kimberly, yes I'm adding you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good as well. I'm good as well. How's everything?
Everything is good. So I think it's 9 sharp.
Yes.
Can you hear me well? Can you see me? I hope there's no network issue from my end.
No, I can see you absolutely fine. I can hear you absolutely fine. Can you hear and see me okay?
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect. Perfect.
So shall we begin?
Sure, definitely. Let's dive into it.
Perfect. So, hello everyone. Today is the episode 10 of Mind, and we have with us Miss Kimberly. She is a psychologist and she has done her bachelor's and master's degree in psychology from US and London. So, I believe
Yes.
you have done your bachelor's from US and you have done your master's in applied clinical psychology from London,
Yes, I
right?
have. Yeah.
You wholeheartedly, Kimberly, and I can't really thank you enough for being on board with us and for being a part of our series. And I
Sure.
would really,
Thank you for having me.
yes, we are really happy and excited to, and especially I am because I'm getting an opportunity to chat with you. So I'm really
Of
looking
course.
forward to have a wonderful chat with you. But before we
Definitely.
really begin, I really want you to introduce yourself to everyone out here so that they can know a bit more about you, your work, and everything else. So go ahead.
Sure. So, like you very rightly introduced me, yes, my name is Kimberly. So, hi everyone. And I've done my bachelor's in psychology from University of Massachusetts, Boston. It was a 4-year course that I did, after which I did take a gap year before I dived into my master's because, it is evident that before you get into your master's, you should be sure about what you really want to do your master's in. So I did take my gap year and I interned with a couple of psychiatrists during that period. I was working at Messina Hospital in Bombay under the guidance of Dr. Yusuf Machiswala for a couple months. After which, I was working with another psychiatrist known as Dr. Anjali Chabria, who's also a psychiatrist in Bombay. So after I basically interned with both the psychiatrists, and I knew for sure that psychology is something that I really want to pursue, and I really want to go ahead with. That's when I decided to get my applied clinical psychology degree from London. And yeah, that's about it. And I've been practicing ever since. I graduated last year in the month of December, and I was working with Dr. Anjali for a couple uh, months after, and now I've started my own private practice, and I've started my own page known as Untangled Wires, where I do try and help destigmatize mental health as much as possible because that's the need of the hour in India, especially. So that's a little bit about me. Yes.
So what I also know, Kimberly, is that you practice CBT and REBT.
Yes, I do. Those are
And
the
yes, go ahead.
Sure. Those are the two main types of therapy that I like, the approach that I do use while I see my clients per se. Yes.
Why I stated these two particularly is because I believe like today's topic, especially when we're talking about anxiety, I
Anxiety.
that your insight that way is definitely going to be meaningful and substantive, right? So
Yes, yes,
I think let's begin. We have people joining in, and as we move forward, I believe that more people will be joining in,
sure.
right? So so today's topic of discussion is anxiety. How do we
Yeah.
really calm ourselves down? Because I believe so. This is exactly what I wanted to discuss with you initially while we begin the session with. So I believe
Hmm.
anxiety is very natural and normal. Don't you think? It is
Yeah,
something part of our day-to-day life, right?
definitely, definitely.
In the most simplest form, anxiety could be defined as our reaction towards a stressful situation, right?
Absolutely,
Or probably
absolutely.
could be defined as an emotion, right? Which is portrayed through feelings of worry or apprehension or uneasiness along with the physical symptoms, right? That could be
Right,
form of high blood pressure, high heart rate, sweating, trembling, right?
right, absolutely.
In our terms, especially when we talk about people who are practicing and who are dealing with anxiety as an issue,
Yeah.
we generally define anxiety as a constant state of worry, uneasiness,
Hmm.
right, along with the
Hmm.
anticipation of a danger situation, right? So, how
Absolutely,
would you
correct.
classify this natural or a normal anxiety, right, with a pathological state?
Right. So, like you very rightly said, anxiety is a very normal day to day kind of a feeling, right? It's your body's natural reaction to stress in the first place. Now, why we get stressed out is when you begin to start, I mean, stress is first of all a very normal thing. It is very normal for a person to go through stress with regards to as simple as, maybe a child's first day at school or a teenager or an adolescent's first day at college. That's something, those are like something those are new situations that you put yourself into, and whenever there's a new situation that arises for a person, that causes a person stress. And when a person like stresses out about something, that's the basic normal anxiety that a person does feel. So it's absolutely normal to kind of feel that little like the little stress, that little anxiety that you say that a person does feel, because it pertains to that it pertains to that uh, situation in that moment. Like it definitely it emphasizes on the situation and the moment that you're actually going through. Now, when it turns into a pathological problem is when that stress continues to pertain in your life or stay in your life for more than 6 months continuously. That's when it could be a problem, right? That's when you need to definitely, reach out to a mental health professional, a psychologist, a clinical psychologist to kind of diagnose and see what kind of anxiety disorder you might be actually facing, because of course there are multiple different anxiety disorders as well in that category. But when you ask me to differentiate between just anxiety and anxiety or a pathological state like an anxiety disorder per se, you need to keep in mind that, like I mentioned earlier, anxiety is very normal. It's a like you can face it in your day-to-day life pertaining to your situation. But when you feel like, maybe you're feeling this continuous worrisome state or this continuous stress, when it's not even a situation that you're in, but you're putting yourself into that situation and you continue putting yourself in those situations without the need of being in that worrisome state for over 6 months, that's when you definitely have to reach out and get yourself diagnosed and check, what kind of anxiety disorder is it that I'm actually, like, which category do I actually fall into and what kind of treatment is best for me. So I think that's the best way we could, probably start off by identifying when it is something severe as compared to just a normal anxious behavior.
So, what I understand from what you're saying, Kimberly, is that anxiety can only turn pathological when it causes a significant amount of distress, and that
Yes,
leads to an
absolutely.
impairment in the overall functioning of an individual. Can we safely say that?
Yes, we can most definitely safely say that, because then you're dysfunctional, right? You basically you're putting you become so dysfunctional, you don't really you're not able to focus on your day-to-day activities. You become lethargic, you become very moody, you're not in a situation or you're not in the condition to do anything. That's when, yes, that's when your thoughts don't match with your actions, and that's when, it is something severe, and you know that this is time now to go out and reach out for help. So that's when, it's most imperative to make sure you reach out to someone who can help you in that situation.
Right. So, Kimberly, what I also know is that anxiety itself are of two kinds, right?
Mm-hmm.
One is anxiety, and the other one is a trait anxiety, right? State anxiety could be very situational. So, somebody who is undergoing a state anxiety might just end up saying that I feel anxious at the moment,
Right,
and
right,
with anxiety might have a habitual tendency of getting anxious.
correct,
Like some the trait anxiety might end up saying that I often feel anxious, right?
correct.
What I want to understand from you is that which kind or which form of anxiety do you, as a professional, feel is more dangerous? A state anxiety, a trait anxiety, or an anxiety which later manifests into a disorder? If prolonged, like
Right.
you said, anxiety is normal, but let's say if
Mm-hmm.
it persists for more than 6 months, it becomes pathological. And once it becomes pathological, that's the time when we should start tending to it. So out of
Yes.
these types, I would say which part of the being would you characterize as something that now it's the high time that individuals should certainly start seeing a psychologist?
Right. Of course, most definitely the third situation, because that's the one that's the most extreme, and that's when, it is bothering with your daily routine, with your daily lifestyle, and that's when things become more severe. Now, anxiety is also another form of depression, because often it's kind of all interrelated in some sort of way, not entirely, of course, not 100%, but it is one thing that can lead to another. And anxiety is such a thing, right? Because you're so moody, you're so lethargic, you're so you start overthinking, you start putting yourself in situations that might not even be something that you should put yourself into, but because you overthink about those situations so much, you do tend to, like, then you ponder upon those situations, and not in a healthy way. You start getting negative thoughts, and that in turn can make you really upset, and that can make you, get into that whole depressive state of mind, and you can become depressive because of that. So of course, the third situation where you state, where a person just gets anxious for over 6 months per se, and you reach out to a mental health therapist. You do reach out to a mental health therapist because it is severe, right? If it's just a basic example, for example, it's just a basic, like before you run a race, that kind of heartbeat feeling that you get, when it's like 3, 2, 1, and now it's time to run. That kind of feeling is very normal. Or like, your first day at work, you're worried, or you're a little nervous about, oh my god, who am I going to meet at work? Will I make friends? Will I not make friends? All that kind of little anxiety should be there. Like, it is absolutely normal to feel that way. But now, even after going to work and meeting all these people and stuff like that, you're still probably overthinking about situations at work continuously for another 6 months, and you're putting yourself in a place where, oh, do my colleagues like me? Do they not like me? You start, drifting away from your colleagues, and you continue this kind of behavior and these negative thoughts for another 6 months. That's when it could be a problem. That's when you do need to seek out for help. So yeah, I think this is like a simple example that I could probably put out there with regards to, trying to identify when it is super severe and when it is like super problematic. So yeah.
You know that 50% of the Indian population is suffering from anxiety disorder. And like,
Mm-hmm.
we previously also discussing that most of the people are unaware. They don't really
Right.
know what they are facing, and most of the time it is either the neglectful attitude or it is the unawareness amongst people about
Mm.
kind of mental disorders that they might be suffering from, but they're not really attending to it. Right.
Right.
And like you said, that it is very important for people to start identifying. And we
Correct.
believe there are both physical and psychological symptoms which are apparent. And it is
Absolutely.
especially very important for people to keep a tab on those symptoms.
Right.
If you want to quickly tell people that what are the different physical and psychological symptoms that one needs to be careful of, to see when a normal anxiety converts into a pathological anxiety.
Right. So let's talk about the physical symptoms first. A physical symptom would be, shivering, trembling. It could be your heart rate beating. You feel that, it's very close to, like, I'm sure everyone doesn't know how a heart attack feels, but your chest starts hurting really badly. Your head starts hurting. You start sweating. Your palms become a little sweaty. You start, there's a lot of trembling and shivering in general. So those are like some of the physical symptoms that I could note down for you. And some of the mental symptoms that could affect you is, of course, negative thoughts, excessive negative thinking. Like, you do put your thoughts into such an negative kind of state of mind where you do think so negatively about something. So that could be like a huge call for help when you do start negatively thinking about a situation. That's one. Even if your thoughts are not per se on the negative side of it, but you start overthinking about situations in 5 to 6 different manners. And you start, probably overthinking about things that might not necessarily be true, but you overthink because you don't really have that patience, or you don't really want to wait to see what actually might be ahead of it. When you start thinking about your future per se, when you're not supposed to like put yourself in that situation and basically rack your brains over what the future might be. When you start overthinking about your future, that's another problem, right? When you don't start living in your present, when you don't appreciate the present state of mind that you're in, that's when I feel like, that's a good example, and that's something, I need to cut short my thought here. I need to acknowledge that I am going beyond what I'm supposed to be thinking at this point, and try and, switch it up with a different thought at that point per se.
So I'm pretty sure that these symptoms are in itself important for people to take care of, especially when they are able to. Because I think the first step to identify a normal anxiety versus a pathological anxiety is to understand these symptoms, right?
Right.
Now that we're talking about the different kinds of anxiety disorders, because of course, since you've really highlighted it much, and then you've said that there are sometimes people feel that what they have is maybe a generalized anxiety disorder, right? But
Right.
simple anxiety might itself be phobic, or it could
Mm-hmm.
itself be a fearful or a
Of
fearful
course.
situation, right? Or it could be, like you said, that the overconsumption of one's negative thoughts, right?
Right.
When people are excessively thinking about certain things. And then
Mm-hmm.
what this in return is a compulsive act, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how would you classify different kinds of anxiety disorders that one need to look out for?
Right. So, very rightly said, the most basic and most common one is the generalized anxiety disorder. That's the most common form of an anxiety disorder, where your basic normal strength of thinking goes beyond, a normal phase where you tend to overthink your situation and put yourself into uncomfortable situations where it starts bothering you more than usual. That's one form. Another one is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, where you basically, what OCD is when you start obsessing over a certain idea in your head, and you kind of want it in that certain manner. So you start obsessively thinking of it being in a particular way. So you start obsessing over the thought that you think that it should be this way, and this is how it is in my head, so this is how it's going to be. So you're obsessed with that routine, that kind of, thought that you have. That's like obsessive compulsive disorder. Then another very common kind of form of anxiety disorder is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that usually occurs when a person does have an unfortunate kind of incident in their past life. Not past life in the sense, in their past timeline. Like, it could be in the past something that's bothered them very majorly, and they can't really let go of those feelings and those thoughts that do come to their mind whenever they, those kind of thoughts come back, because that incident was so hurtful to that person. So that's something that really can be bothersome to a person. So, yeah, that's basically what PTSD is. It is also very common nowadays in India, actually, because a lot of people have started talking about it and talking about, for the kind of incidents that they must have faced while they were a child, or, when they were an adolescent, for example. People have been, like, talking about their situation even more, since mental health has been so highlighted at this point, considering everything that's going around in India right now, specifically. So, yeah, PTSD has been another form of anxiety disorder that has been pretty common nowadays. So, that's another form of anxiety disorder that I would say is pretty common.
Okay, and phobia is also one of the.
Yes, of course. Yeah, phobia is also one of the kinds of anxiety disorders. Of course, all these anxiety phobia is very common as well. It depends on, what kind of phobia you do feel. Of course, it could be related to like hydrophobia. It could be related to heights. It could be related to anything. That's also pretty common, but it does take a while for a person to know if that's actually, like, phobia that a person has, or it's just something that a person dislikes. I feel like usually there's a lot of confusion between disliking something and actually being phobic towards it. It's a very common term nowadays adolescents use, I'm phobic, or I have this phobia. And I mean, it's not like you have this phobia, because like being phobic towards something is like that kind of state of mind that person is to actually be so scared to do it is totally different from a person just disliking something and being like, no, but I have this phobia and I can't do it. So yeah,
So what I understand is that of course the awareness about all of these disorders is particularly important, but at the
of
same
course.
time, it is very important for people to be vigilant about what is really happening to them, physically or psychologically, right? And of
Yes.
course, what we have really understood is that if anything, if any state of anxiety, or let's say, if any state of worry or fear or negative thoughts persists for more than 6 months, that should be everybody's cue to see. Is that
Yes.
correct? Wonderful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So, probably, moving ahead, I would also want to ask and understand, because I think this is majorly everybody's question, that
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to anxiety disorder, what sort of treatment works best? Is it the medication or the psychotherapy?
Right. That's actually a really nice question that you've asked me, because a lot of people have that, thought very often that, I'm against medicine and that's not something that I want to take. And psychotherapy is something that I'm looking at, because, like, once I start taking medication, then I might get addicted to it and stuff like that. So, in case of anxiety, like I also mentioned earlier, once you do get diagnosed, that's when we can know how severe your form of anxiety is. Is it that you require only psychotherapy, or you do require medication? It could be either, it could be both of it. It really depends on the severity of the kind of anxiety disorder that you're facing at this point. That being said, of course, it's not like once you take these medications, you get addicted to it. Now, if you're having a headache, you will pop a pill, right? Or if you're having a fever, you'll still go ahead and take a medicine. But that doesn't mean, oh, I'm addicted to that medication or that medicine per se. You will still go ahead and opt for, physical form of medicine. So yeah, in the same way, anxiety, you might require medication, you might not require, but that really depends on on the mental health therapist that you're seeing, and the psychiatrist as well. Because of course, like a psychologist or a clinical psychologist can only diagnose this for you. They can only tell you how severe this is for you, but at the end of the day, it's a psychiatrist who gives you the prescription for it. Of course, on knowing your case history from your psychologist, like from your clinical psychologist, and from understanding how severe your anxiety is. So it could be a mix of, medicine, and it could be a mix of therapy. And most often, the form of therapy that is used for anxious people is CBT. Actually, it's a very common form of approach for people who face anxiety. So yeah, it could be a mix of both. It could be either one, but like I mentioned again, it depends entirely on the form of, how severe your anxiety disorder may be.
So, Kimberly, again, again, now that we were discussing about how naturally and how normally anxiety comes to all of us, and we have also
Right.
discovered, this is something which is a part of everybody's life, like stresses, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes anxiety could also be a response to a stressful situation, like how people
Right.
usually end up defining it as, right? So, Kimberly, if I were to ask you, let's say if we were to tell people about different strategies or different ways of coping with their everyday anxiety, ensuring
Mm-hmm.
that their anxiety itself does not develop into an anxiety disorder, what are the different
Right.
things or what are the different strategies would you want to promote, and what are the different strategies
Sure.
would you want people to immediately adopt, so that
Sure.
they're more prone, or they're, even if they're being more vulnerable, one thing that I've understood is that it is very important and essential for people to immediately seek for help once they see that the stressful situation or the worry or anything else for that matter, the symptoms that we have discussed so far, whether it is physical or psychological, if it is
Mm-hmm.
pertaining within 6 months, that's the cue that it is the
Right.
time that you should really seek for a professional help, right? But
Right.
before that, let's take a step behind, and if we were to specially manage our anxiety on day-to-day basis, how do we do
Mm-hmm.
that?
So there are a couple grounding techniques that, being a psychologist, I do recommend to most of my clients. And these grounding techniques have actually been very resourceful towards them. So the most common form of grounding technique that I usually do recommend to all of my clients is the 5-4-3-2-1 method. It's basically a method that kind of emphasizes and highlights your sensory organs, the five sensory organs that we have. So, what, like when a person is anxious, right? You go into that, you form that little bubble in your head and you get into this outer zone, right? You're not in your current state of mind because you're in this whole other bubble of thinking of a different situation that you've put yourself into. So hence it's called a grounding method so that it anchors you back to the ground, right? And the best form of, getting your senses back to the ground is by making sure you emphasize on these senses. So now the 5-4-3-2-1 technique is basically, it's a very quick technique. Of course, the first two times, maybe when you do it, you might take a little while, but the more you practice it, so when this is when, uh, for example, right, your let's say a stressful situation could be, for example, now coronavirus, right? Now everyone's stressed out about getting out of their houses for the first time, but now we have to learn to adapt to this new normal. If we have to step out, we have to step out. Of course, you take your precautions and you step out, but you're on the street right now, and there's probably a person walking really close by near you. And that's when you feel like, oh my God, like I am feeling a certain way. Let me go home. This is not something I want to cope with right now. So, per se, you go home, right? But then you still think about the situation in your head, oh my God, but I was on the street and this person just walked by me. What if, like, that person was infected? Then you start having all these thoughts. That's when your normal stress turns into like a little higher form of anxiety. And that's when okay, now I need to bring myself back to like reality, because I am overthinking about the situation. I was scared that I was on the street. So to prevent from, like, whatever thoughts I had at that point, I quickly took the decision of going back home and being secure at home. I am home right now, everything is okay, but I'm still thinking about this. Why? So that's when the 5-4-3-2-1 comes in, where basically you notice the first five things that you can see in your surrounding. So literally pick out five things that you see in your surrounding. It could be your fan, it could be your door, it could be a blanket. Literally spot five things because you're using your eyes at that point, right? So you spot those five things. Four things that you can feel. Probably try and touch something that, activates your senses, right? So you probably want to touch, like, a soft pillow, for example. You want to touch your hair, you want to feel your hair, but actually let that feeling sink in when you're touching these four things. Now that you're done with five and four, then the next step would be three things that you hear. Try and be aware of three things that you're hearing in your surrounding. It could be, for example, it's raining nowadays, so it's raining at that time. So you're making use of your ears and trying to feel the rain, and trying to hear the different sounds it's making. It could be the traffic on your road. It could be your mom talking to someone on the phone. It could be your dad, shouting at someone. It could be your brother and your sister fighting. Anything. It could be the TV. It could be the television. So that's another good way to get your ears into doing the the work of activating that kind of sense. Then two things that you can probably taste. So most definitely someone mustn't be hungry at all times, like that's not something that you would want to probably grab a bite in a situation where you're feeling a little anxious. It is very preferable if you can probably go to the fridge, pick out like an apple or whatever, two of your favorite things that you want to taste. But if you don't want to indulge in eating it at that point, of course, just for example, coffee is a very strong coffee and tea. Okay, that's something that's very basic. Everybody probably consumes some form of it, coffee, tea, or milk. So probably try and experience that taste in your mouth, right? Try and feel this is the taste that I want to savor at this moment. Pizza, fries, whatever it is, something that you're really, really, uh, something that you really, really like. Try and think about that flavor so that it kind of enhances that taste buds in your mouth when you're thinking about it. And then the last thing is basically one thing that you can smell. So this can be also super simple, like, just go and pick up something. It could be anything basic. It could be anything out of your fridge. You pick out like a piece of chocolate and you smell it. You pick out something like an onion. It's a very stingy taste and a smell as well. So pick it out and smell it. Pick a freshly, washed cloth and try and smell that. So I feel like this technique kind of helps you ground all your senses and get them back down to reality. And that's why it works with most people. Of course, this is one of the techniques that I do suggest. That being said, every individual is different, and that doesn't mean if this works for even 70%, you don't have to be one of those 70%. If this doesn't work out, there's also other methods that a lot of psychologists do suggest. One being also another one, very common one, is journaling your thoughts, because your thoughts are is your direct source of anxiety and your direct source of stress. You usually tend to, like, it's a very nice practice, even if you're not an anxious person, just spending those 5 minutes of time just to yourself and trying to acknowledge all the thoughts, maybe early in the morning whenever you're waking up or whenever you're anxious also, of course. And by journaling, you don't really have to have a book and a pencil, right? Everybody has their cell phone with them at all times now, so you can just open your notes and quickly put down the thought. It doesn't have to be like a 50 liner kind of thing, but it could just be one line, that how you're feeling at this point. If you're feeling good, you're not feeling good, what is the environment you're in, how you're, like, the four prompts that I basically use is, of course, you put down the thought that you're feeling. Then you ask yourself, why have I felt this thought? Okay, so you write down why. Then you write down the situation you were in, like the environment you were in. For example, I could be in my living room and I felt this way. Okay, so you write down, like, I was in my living room and I felt this way. Oh, like, for example, the situation is that your mom and your grandmother are fighting. Hence, I started feeling a little anxious. So that's your thought. Then the environment is that I was in the living room with my mom and my grandmom. And then you write down, what did you do to kind of get yourself out of the situation. So it could be as simple as, I got out of the living room and I went to my bedroom. So what did you do to cope with it? And the last question being, did it really help you? Like, do you think this was something that helped you become less anxious about it? So yeah, these are the four prompts that I usually do suggest when it comes to journaling. So yeah, these are the, like, two methods that I mostly widely use with my clients.
So, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and journaling is what you
Journaling,
proposed.
yeah.
That would really help people cope with anxiety that they're facing on day-to-day basis. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yes,
Wonderful.
that is.
Okay. So, Kimberly, if so, maybe we can conclude the session. But before that, if you were to give a quick message to everyone
Mm-hmm.
out there, because you're working on the same mission, right? Which
Right.
is towards breaking the stigma around surrounding mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what is that message? What is that quick message that you would really want to give away to people?
So I think the message that I'd really want to give people is, the best way to end the stigma towards mental health is being very mindful and being very empathetic towards each other. I feel like that's not what's, very prominent in today's world. I feel like people are very judgmental and people, aren't very kind to each other as much as we should ideally be. So I think like being empathetic, being kind, and being mindful are the three things that I'd like to really focus on and really emphasize on. And I'd request everybody on this call to like, focus being that way. One act of kindness can really, it might give you like maybe 5 seconds of happiness, but the person who you've been kind towards, you don't know how helpful you've been towards that person. So yeah, that's one message that I would really like to give all the viewers right now.
That's wonderful, Kimberly. So, what I really understand from today's session is that it is very important for us to be a little more vigilant about what we are experiencing, because what we've
Absolutely.
really understood is that anxiety is something which is very common, and it is a
Mm-hmm.
part of our day life. We might experience anxiety, in different forms, right? And we might even experience anxiety in different situations as well. But
Right.
it's very important for us to keep a tab on the kind of symptoms our body is exhibiting. Because a lot of times we both know that, in India, people are taking care mostly about the way their body is reacting physically. But when it
Right.
comes to keeping a tab of how their body or how their thought processes are working, people are not really paying much more heed and
More
attention.
mindful towards that. Absolutely.
Yes. So I think being aware and being mindful and being empathetic to your own self, seeking help at the right time from the right
Right.
people. I believe that is also something which is very important, because a lot of time, I mean, I personally have seen people who are suffering from anxiety disorders. They go even to a psychologist or a psychiatrist
Mm-hmm.
also, but sometimes the kind of help that they receive is not that very beneficial, and somehow that itself leads to an over generalized sort of a mindset
Right.
pattern in them, which I believe, that does not really help them in long term. So I think it's very important for people to take care of themselves
Mm-hmm.
and attend to the issues that are causing their functioning a little bit disturbed. And
Right.
thank you so much,
No
Kimberly.
problem. With the point that you did mention, how I just like to highlight this because it is something that I've faced a lot as well, like with a lot of clients that see me as well. They go for a lot of therapy with different psychologists and go like, that wasn't fruitful, or that wasn't something that I was looking for. And, you just have to really be, you need to be more trustworthy towards the whole towards the whole process. You can't see a psychologist once or twice and expect change overnight. It's not magical. It is a continuous process. So allow your psychologist and allow yourself. It's a 50-50 process, right? You can't expect your psychologist doing 90% of the work where you want to put in only 10% of it. It is a 50-50 thing. Your psychologist is there to guide you through the whole your journey, but at the end of the day, it's you putting in that work. And I feel like that's where a lot of, there's a lot of communication gap in that terms. I feel like people don't understand that it's the work that you put out of your therapy as well that really, matters the most. And then
And
people go
I
like,
believe
oh,
that, Kimberly, now that you're talking about it, I also believe that many a
right.
times what people generally do is that they want a magic reaction, you know.
Yes, yes. I absolutely agree.
And like when they have a physical ailment, they are just given a medication, and like
Right.
for a simple headache, you pop in a medicine and then you're completely fine. So many a times it happens that people start expecting that, even if they are suffering from something, uh, the the treatment should be speeding up. The
It's
treatment
like,
should
yeah,
be
how you get like medication from say like your normal GP, like your general practitioner. You get like a 2 to 3 day medication, right? You get these tablets, you have to take it for 2 to 3 days and you're fine. But people don't understand that's not the situation with your mental health, right? It is something that takes, it's more tedious to, change the way you think in your thought process. And because like your mind is a very, very strong component of you. So to kind of change how you think, how you behave, how your behaviors towards things, it is a process, and you need to allow yourself at least 7 to 8 sessions minimum to see maybe 2 to 3% of difference in you. And that being said, like I mentioned, you need to put in that extra additional homework and that work that your psychologist might give you, which people like, basically want to just do therapy and vent, which is good. You vent, but also try and do something about it. Otherwise, there's nothing, you're not going to see any progress in your, mental state or your mental mind at that point. So, yeah, I feel like that's something people need to be a little bit more aware about.
Yes, with that being said, Kimberly, it was definitely a wonderful session. I believe that people who will be viewing our video should certainly benefit from it because I think sometimes a little bit of awareness is enough.
I
The
agree, definitely.
awareness with the things that are going around us is something
Hmm.
just enough for us to attempt, especially when it comes to our field. I think what
Right,
people are really lacking in is just awareness. They should
right.
really
Just
be
that
aware
first step. Correct.
first, because I think then after that, you can start understanding. Once you understand the nature of your problem, I feel after that you can really understand how to attend to it. But the very
Absolutely.
first part, when it comes to India, is missing. So I hope that this session proves to be beneficial to
I
people.
hope so too.
And
Yes,
Kishore, thank you so much for taking out time. It was wonderful chatting with you. I hope that we connect soon. And
definitely,
uh,
definitely.
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. You were a great moderator, and it was a really nice conversation that we had. And I hope people did benefit from the little conversation that we did have in this time. So yeah, it was good all in all.
Okay. All right, Kimberly. Thank you so much for taking out time. I will see you soon.
Yes. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.